Hello once again. How's everybody going today? Welcome my fellow paranormal enthusiasts. Welcome to part 3 of my vlog that I've so technically stated as Technology Behind the Paranormal Investigator. This is part 3 video recording. So, getting straight into it. So we're getting into video. So I guess the first thing to do is go over the same thing as I did in audio. The video spectrum, or the light spectrum. Okay? Light spectrum is pretty wide, pretty big. There's only a small section of the light spectrum that is what was called, what do they call it? I just had a mind for it. Visible light. What they call visible light. But in our circumstances in paranormal, because of technology and prices and so forth going down all the time, and technology increasing, recently we've been able to look into, there's another spectrum of light right above a visible light called infrared, and there's one just below visible light called ultraviolet. Now we'll get into the other two, ultraviolet and infrared, later on in the video. Right now we're going to specify on visible light. So I got that done. So the thing about visible light, the cameras as a whole. Oh my goodness! If anybody's ever looked on Amazon and you're thinking about buying a video camera, then the prices are, huge. You can go anywhere from less than $100 to several $1,000s. And of course there's a reason for that. Because the cost is the lens, the CMOS sensor, the electronics, the case, and signal processing. The higher you go in, and we'll get into the specifications, the more expensive the camera. So, particularly what we're interested in as far as the cameras is concerned, there's generally the specifications. I'm not a photographer, I'm not a videographer, but I've been researching into this enough that there's a lot of specifications in video cameras, and man, there's college courses just on videography and photography. But on ghost hunting, what we're particularly interested in is 2 specifications, which also is what determines the price of your camera. You got the first specification, which is called resolution. That's when you start hearing these numbers, this 480p, 720p, 1080p, 4K, 8K. That's resolution. Then the second specification we're going to be dealing with is called frame rate. And frame rate is when you start hearing about these specs being shot out, called 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second. And I'm going to be getting into those here just in a second about why they're so important to us. So let's go into resolution first. For the most part, as far as resolution is concerned, it's if you're just shooting a regular video and you're going to be watching it on a tablet or maybe a 13-inch laptop or a camera, the lower resolutions would be okay. They're pretty clear, they're all right. Still, the higher you go up in resolution, a little bit more crisp and a little bit clearer. But you won't see it as much until you start getting into the larger monitors. You know, your 27, 32, 55, 65-inch monitors. Then you're going to see you throw a 720p video on a 32-inch monitor, and it's going to be all blurry and pixely and everything. It's not very good at all. The second important thing about the resolution on a camera to take into effect is that when you zoom in, you can't do too much zooming in a low resolution picture. So the more you zoom in on something, it starts getting all blurry and pixelated and everything. You know, the zooming in, you know, you're sitting there, you're doing your video, you're recording it, and you go back and take a look at it, like, what was that in the corner of the screen? And you sit there and you go and zoom in and take a look at it. You need to do again, depending on what you want to do. If you just want to watch it, that'll work. But those are different specifications. Okay, frame rate. The thing about frame rate is today's digital video cameras aren't watching your video when you record non-stop. So what the frame rate means is the digital camera is taking pictures. And you're taking, let's go, say for example, we'll start off 30 frames per second. That digital camera is taking 30 pictures per second and then throwing them all together. And same thing when you go up 60 frames per second, it's taking 60 pictures per second. The time when that comes into is the flashing light thing. That's a big one. There's been a few videos and they'll talk around and say, did you see that light flash? And you're watching the video and like, what flashing light? That's because the camera was too slow and turning it on, turning it back off again, it didn't catch it. It was just too slow. It'll also come into play when you're talking about a shadow figure going across the room. If you're doing slow frame rate, you might not even see it go across the room. You were there, you're taking a video, and you go back and take a look at it, and it's not on the video. That's because the camera was too slow. Or you'll see it here, and you might see it over there. And same thing when you see these get into situations where people are recording what they think is somebody peering around a corner of a room or outside of a door and going back in again. That's the same thing. So that's when your frame rate kicks in. So we've gone over 2 specs. Again, if any of these things you want to go over, go ahead and Google them or just leave a message below. Subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. Okay, so next situation for video cameras. Real quick, like before we get into the video part, of course, you know, everybody knows aware, video camera also records audio. The thing about recording audio with a video camera is a video camera records the video and the audio where you're looking at. Not there, not there, not there, here. And the microphone on a video camera is inside the case. And there's a couple holes or maybe a grill put on top of it so that it listens to hear what you're pointing at. Because that's the idea of video camera. But there's a cure for that. Some of the better cameras have got some added electronic jacks, and one of them is for a external microphone. So you can plug an external microphone into it. There you go, much better audio, 360. Okay, so going from there, going back into the camera itself, just look at the specs, watch some YouTube videos, get a basic understanding of what you want, and then buy what you can afford. It's just, like I said, it's so wide open. Personally, the camera we got is, we wanted for our daylight camera, our normal light camera, we wanted to be able to switch out the lenses. So we have one lens that's for inside a building, relatively close up. Then we bought the longer range lens for when you're taking pictures, you know, of a field, of a cemetery, or you're taking a picture of that window on the 2nd or 3rd floor where supposedly there's a spirit that shows itself every now and then. You want to get that picture. That's what the second lens is for. So that's our normal light camera. Now we get into those other two forms of light. Okay, there's a different type of camera, and this camera, remember, it's got a different lens. It's got different CMOS sensor on it. It's got different electronics and different signal processing, so it can take it. This particular camera, which most people refer to as a full spectrum camera. Okay, full spectrum camera. What a full spectrum camera can do is it can record and visualize in the infrared range and the ultraviolet range. Again, let me point out, the lenses are different and the CMOS is different, signal processing is different. Okay, that's why you need to do your research and watch your videos and stuff. Do your research. So they have these other add-ons for full spectrum cameras. It's got this it's an LED array. And what it is it's a bunch of LEDs in a little box, and it's like you just take it and you put it on top of your full spectrum camera, and you can buy it in infrared or you can buy it in ultraviolet. And what that is it's just like a flashlight. It's a special flashlight. It's a special flashlight with special LEDs that emits and fills a room full of infrared energy or full of ultraviolet energy, and when the room lights up like you turn on a light. And that's what those things do. It's good add-on. So, and that's the cameras for full spectrum. Again, any questions and so forth. Personally, ourselves, like I said, these cameras, look into it, find out what resolution, what you want to do. Again, remember, the higher the resolution, the higher the frame rate, the more space you're going to take on your memory card. So remember that too. Okay? Always have an extra memory card on you. Personally, ourselves, when we record video, we record our video in 4K, 60 frames per second. That's what we record at and playback at. So, normal light, full spectrum. Next one, a thermal imaging camera, or sometimes referred to as a FLIR. Thermal imaging is just that simple. It's just heat. Just picks up heat. Specifically designed just to pick up heat. We don't have one for our own reasons, and I don't want to include our biases into you and your pick, how you want to pick and what you want to do. Okay. The only uses I can really see by watching a lot of videos of people who have thermal cameras, I would say probably if you're like in a cemetery or you're outside someplace or on a battleground, a thermal camera would probably come in very, very handy. If you hear something and you're not sure, and you turn on your thermal camera and you can tell if that noise came from a dog, a raccoon, or another person out there with you. That's what that will do, because you can't hide. But really, as far as picking up or being able to track and locate a spirit, I question that myself. Another couple more places that would probably be very helpful for if you go into a basement or if you go in the attic. Because you're sitting there and you're doing some recording, or you're doing an EVP, and you keep on hearing something running across the roof or the ceiling of the building. You know, you're going to do is just pop up with your thermal imaging camera, and you can see if there's nobody up there, or if there's a raccoon or a squirrel or something up there. So it'll help you with that. Same thing with the basement. So that takes care of thermal imaging cameras. Okay, the last one, and some of you might have heard of it, some of you might not have. It's getting big, but anyway, what they call, at first, when it first came out, they called it a Kinnect, and now they're calling it an SLS camera. Reason being is the whole idea of the sensor array and using a pad, the tablet and so forth. The original cameras were exactly that. They bought, I could do a separate video just on Microsoft and their Kinnect sensor. pretty fascinating story. But anyway, the SLS cameras that's coming out now, it all comes down to money, ladies and gentlemen. It all comes down to money. The original Kinnect sensor was quite expensive. Microsoft did a lot of research and development for years to come out with a sensor, and it's that particular sensor in its original form, the version 2 Kinnect, it's got a bunch of sensors in it, and its job is to be able to detect and track the human body in 3D space. Here, and how far away in 3D space. It can also do full voice, facial detection, and it can do voice recognition. So you can just walk, in those days, you can, believe me, because I've got one. You can just walk in the room and then the Kinnect sees you and knows who you are. Or you say something and knows who you are. And it knows where you're at. But what they've done nowadays is, though between the power of the computer you needed for that sensor was quite powerful, so overall the cost was quite high. So what they've done is the manufacturers nowadays, they've deleted some of the sensors on it because they didn't think it's necessary, and they've got cheaper sensors on them. A little bit better technology, but cheaper. So I don't know. And you're using most of them nowadays are using Android tablets, and it's relatively new. And the software, I don't think we've got the software down tacked quite yet. So, from my technical standpoint, again, there's the information. Make your own decision as you see fit. So, I guess that pretty well does it for video recording. So part 4, of course, will be coming up shortly on playback. Taking all these files and going back and taking a look at them and see what you missed. So I hope this was rather interesting video for you, and I hope I explained a lot of things to you and what to look for when you decide to go get your camera. So other than that, these are my final words. Later.